The death of a single human child ignited a galactic inferno. In 2147, the Galactic Council found itself on its knees, begging for mercy as humanity's warships mobilized, their weapons trained on the Chalnoth homeworld. It began on Chalnoth Prime, a world of scaled creatures and alien landscapes. Justin Young, a 35-year-old human diplomat, received the news that shattered his world and would soon shake the foundations of interstellar politics. His 7-year-old son, Ethan, lay dead, the victim of negligence at a Chalnoth educational facility. The human government's demand for justice fell on deaf ears. Ambassador Juno, the Chalnoth representative known for her pragmatic approach, attempted to downplay the incident. Her cold dismissal of human concerns sparked a firestorm of outrage across Earth and its colonies. Admiral Sarah Richardson, Earth's voice on the Galactic Council, delivered an ultimatum that sent shockwaves through the assembly halls. Either the Chalnoth would face severe consequences, or humanity would sever ties with the Council and unleash the full might of its military upon the Chalnoth Empire. The Council chambers erupted in panic. Alien diplomats scrambled to mediate, their voices rising in desperate pleas for calm. They knew the destructive potential of human military technology, weapons reverse-engineered from a patchwork of alien advancements now poised to turn against their progenitors. But the Chalnoth remained obstinate, refusing to acknowledge fault. Their stubbornness fanned the flames of human vengeance, transforming grief into a galaxy-spanning call for retribution. Justin Young, once a voice of interspecies cooperation, now became the face of humanity's wrath. His personal tragedy morphed into a rallying cry, Ethan's name spoken in hushed tones across human settlements as a symbol of alien disregard for human life. On Earth, military leaders huddled in war rooms, their fingers tracing invasion routes across star charts. Human fleets assembled at strategic points, their hulls gleaming with weaponry that made alien observers shudder. The message was clear: humanity would no longer tolerate being treated as a junior partner in galactic affairs. The Galactic Council, its members pale with fear, recognized the looming catastrophe. An interstellar war with humans at its center threatened to unravel centuries of peaceful coexistence. Their frantic attempts at diplomacy fell on deaf ears as humanity's resolve hardened into unshakable determination. As tensions reached a breaking point, the galaxy held its breath. The humans, once seen as upstart newcomers to the cosmic stage, now stood ready to reshape the balance of power. Their military might, tempered by centuries of conflict on Earth and honed by reverse-engineered alien tech, was an unknown factor that sent shivers through even the most battle-hardened alien warriors. The stage was set for a conflict that would echo across the stars. Humanity, driven by the primal need to protect its young, stood poised to unleash a fury that the galaxy had never witnessed. The Galactic Council's pleas for mercy grew more desperate by the hour, but the die was cast. In the cold vastness of space, human warships awaited the command to advance. Their crews, eyes hard with resolve, remembered the face of a 7-year-old boy they had never met, and they prepared to bring justice to an uncaring universe, no matter the cost. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's warships mobilized. Admiral James Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, Earth's most advanced dreadnought. His weathered face reflected in the viewport as he gazed at the armada before him. 500 warships, gleaming and dripping with weaponry, poised at the edge of Chalnoth space. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his XO announced. Hawthorne nodded. "Commence Operation Ironclad." The fleet surged forward, a steel tide carrying humanity's fury across the stars. On screens across the galaxy, aliens watched with a mixture of awe and terror as Earth flexed its military might. Meanwhile, on Chalnoth Prime, Justin Young moved through shadowy corridors, his diplomat's credentials opening doors that would have remained sealed to others. His grief had hardened into purpose, driving him to uncover the truth behind his son's death. In a dimly lit archive, Justin's eyes widened as he scanned classified documents. "My God," he whispered, his hand shaking as he activated his secure comlink. Earth Command, this is Young. I've found evidence of illegal biological weapons development by the Chalnoth. Transmitting data now. The information spread like wildfire through Earth's military channels. In war rooms across human space, strategies were redrawn and targets reassessed. The revelation galvanized public opinion, with news feeds across settled worlds broadcasting continuous updates. On Earth, President Malcolm Stone faced a barrage of questions from the press. In light of this new information, he said, his voice steady, we are left with no choice but to take decisive action to protect not only humanity, but all law-abiding species in the galaxy. As human commitment hardened, the Galactic Council scrambled to prevent all-out war. Xanthor, the respected Andromedan mediator, led a delegation to Earth. In a grand conference room overlooking the rebuilt skyline of New York, he addressed Earth's leaders. We propose a compromise, Xanthor said, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the tense faces around him. The Chalnoth will pay reparations for young Ethan's death and allow human oversight in their educational facilities. President Stone leaned forward, his expression grave. With all due respect, Xanthor, that offer might have sufficed weeks ago, but in light of the Chalnoth's secret weapons program, it is woefully inadequate. The alien delegation left Earth empty-handed, their failure echoing through the corridors of power across the galaxy. In Chalnoth space, High Commander Kralzak surveyed a holographic display of his forces. The Chalnoth fleet was vast, outnumbering the humans, but Kralzak knew numbers alone wouldn't be enough. Deploy the minefields here and here, he ordered, gesturing to key approach vectors. And I want our planetary shields at maximum power. As the Chalnoth prepared for a siege, other species began to take sides. The Syrians, longtime rivals of the Chalnoth, pledged their advanced technology to Earth's cause. In contrast, the insectoid Vespid Collective threw their considerable numbers behind the Chalnoth. Admiral Hawthorne received the intelligence about the secret research facility on Gorax as his fleet approached Chalnoth space. He summoned Major Elena Rodriguez to the Vengeance's war room. Major, I need your team to infiltrate this facility, Hawthorne said, indicating a holographic representation of the moon base. Secure evidence of their weapons program, then get out. We'll handle the rest. Rodriguez nodded, her eyes gleaming with the challenge. We'll get it done, sir. Hours later, Rodriguez and her team slipped through the facility's defenses. They moved like ghosts through sterile laboratories, copying data and planting charges. As they extracted, Rodriguez keyed her comm. Vengeance, this is ground team. We're clear. Light it up. From orbit, the HSS Vengeance's main cannon flared to life. A lance of energy streaked down, turning night to day on Gorax's surface. When the light faded, a massive crater stood where the facility had been. The strike's precision shocked the Galactic Council. Species that had been fence-sitting now openly condemned the Chalnoth, but instead of capitulating, the Chalnoth leadership dug in their heels. Yes, we will not bow to human aggression, Chalnoth Prime Minister Zexgra declared in an address to her people. We have survived worse. We will endure. As news of the strike reached Earth, crowds gathered in cities across the planet. They chanted Ethan Young's name, waving banners demanding justice. The pressure on President Stone intensified. In the Oval Office, Stone faced his advisors. The Chalnoth have made their choice, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. Prepare the invasion plans. Across human space, factories worked overtime, churning out weapons and ships. The Mark 7 Planet Cracker missiles rolled off assembly lines, their casings gleaming under industrial lights. Recruitment centers were flooded as volunteers lined up around the block, each eager to play their part in the coming conflict. Admiral Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as his fleet assembled into attack formation. The comm channels were alive with chatter as captains reported ready status. Sir, his XO said, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Hawthorne nodded, his expression grim. He knew what the message would contain. As he read the orders, he felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. With a deep breath, he turned to address his crew. All hands, he began, his voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. The order has been given. We are to commence full-scale operations against Chalnoth military targets. May God have mercy on us all. As Hawthorne's words echoed through the fleet, the massive armada began to move. Engines flared to life, pushing humanity's vengeance forward into Chalnoth space. The galaxy watched, knowing that the next few hours would reshape the balance of power for generations to come. The massive human armada surged forward into Chalnoth space, a wall of steel and firepower that stretched as far as the eye could see. Admiral James Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. "All ships, assume attack formation Delta," Hawthorne ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Prepare to engage enemy forces on my mark." The fleet of 1,000 warships moved with precision, forming into a complex three-dimensional array designed to maximize their offensive and defensive capabilities. As they approached the first Chalnoth defensive line, alarms blared across the bridge. "Incoming fire," shouted the tactical officer. "Multiple missile launches detected." Hawthorne's eyes narrowed. "Initiate countermeasures. All ships, return fire." The vacuum of space lit up with explosions as human point defense systems intercepted the incoming Chalnoth missiles. Simultaneously, the human fleet unleashed its own barrage, a storm of advanced weaponry that overwhelmed the Chalnoth defenses. On the Chalnoth command ship, High Commander Kralzak watched in dismay as the first line of defense crumbled under the human assault. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled skin paling. "How did they become so powerful?" "Sir," a subordinate reported, "we're detecting human ships flanking our position. They're using some kind of advanced stealth technology." Kralzak hissed in frustration. "Redirect our reserves to Sector 7. We cannot allow them to—" His words were cut short as the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as damage reports flooded in. Back on the HSS Vengeance, Hawthorne allowed himself a grim smile. "Well done, Major Rodriguez," he said into his comm. "Your strike team's sabotage of their sensor arrays is paying off." The human advance continued relentlessly. Within hours, key Chalnoth colonies fell, their defenses unable to withstand the concentrated firepower of the Earth fleet. Resource-rich asteroids, once the source of Chalnoth wealth, now flew human flags. On Earth, President Malcolm Stone stood before a sea of cameras in the White House press room. His face was etched with lines of worry, but his voice rang out clear and strong. "My fellow citizens of Earth and her colonies," he began, "today we find ourselves at war. Not a war of our choosing, but one forced upon us by the actions of the Chalnoth Empire." The president's words were broadcast across human space, from the crowded streets of New Beijing to the farthest orbital habitats. The death of young Ethan Young was not just a tragedy, but a crime compounded by the Chalnoth government's callous disregard for human life and their secret development of illegal biological weapons. Stone's voice hardened. "We did not seek this conflict, but we will not shy away from it. The full might of humanity will be brought to bear against those who would threaten our children and our future." As the president spoke, factories across Earth and her colonies roared into action. Assembly lines churned out weapons, armor, and spacecraft at an unprecedented rate. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers, each eager to play their part in the war effort. In a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, Justin Young pored over intelligence reports, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. The grief of losing his son had transformed into a laser-like focus on bringing down the Chalnoth Empire. "Here," he said, pointing to a complex diagram. "The Chalnoth communication network has a vulnerability in this sector. If we can exploit it, we could disrupt their entire command structure." General Aisha Nahas nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, Mr. Young. Your insights have been invaluable." As Justin turned back to his work, he caught a glimpse of Ethan's photo on his desk. "I'll make this right, son," he whispered. "I promise." In the depths of Chalnoth space, Ambassador Juno paced her opulent quarters, her scaled tail swishing nervously. She knew the humans' technological superiority made this war unwinnable for her people. With trembling claws, she activated a secure communication channel. "This is Ambassador Juno," she whispered. "I need to speak with someone in Earth's high command. We must end this before it's too—" The door to her quarters burst open. War Minister Drakthar stormed in, flanked by heavily armed guards. "Traitor!" Drakthar snarled, his fangs bared. "You would betray your own kind to the humans?" Juno raised her hands placatingly. "Drakthar, please. This war will destroy us. We must seek peace while we still can." The War Minister's eyes narrowed. "Take her away," he ordered the guards. "She will face the Empire's justice for her crimes." As Juno was dragged from her quarters, the last hope for a diplomatic resolution vanished. On the fringes of the conflict, members of the Galactic Council met in secret, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "The humans are advancing too quickly," the Andromedan representative hissed. "If they achieve total victory, the balance of power in the galaxy will be irrevocably altered." The Syrian counselor nodded gravely. "Agreed. We must act to slow their advance, but covertly. We cannot risk open confrontation with Earth." Plans were made, resources allocated. Soon, Chalnoth ships began to mysteriously receive upgrades to their shielding technology. Tactical advice, supposedly from anonymous sources, found its way to Chalnoth military leaders. The effects of this covert assistance soon became apparent on the battlefield. Admiral Hawthorne frowned as he studied the latest combat reports. "The Chalnoth defenses are holding much better than anticipated," he mused. "XO, run a full analysis of their shield frequencies. Something's changed, and I want to know what." As the conflict intensified, the veneer of civilized warfare began to crack. Reports filtered back to Earth of human forces using excessive force against Chalnoth civilian targets. Videos circulated on the galactic net, showing the aftermath of orbital bombardments on populated areas. The Chalnoth, driven to desperation, unleashed their biological weapons on human-occupied worlds. On the colony of New Eden, the air filled with sickly spores that left humans gasping and convulsing in the streets. Dr. Elena Reeves, a top xenobiologist, worked tirelessly in her lab on the research vessel HSS Galileo. Her team had been tasked with analyzing Chalnoth biological weapons, but their research had led them down an unexpected path. "This can't be right," Elena muttered, staring at her holographic display. "Run the analysis again." Her assistant, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, looked up from his own work. "What is it, Elena?" She shook her head, her face pale. "If these results are accurate, the Chalnoth haven't just been developing weapons. They've been manipulating genetic codes across multiple species, including humans." Yuki's eyes widened. "For how long?" "Centuries, at least," Elena replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "And Yuki, I think Ethan Young's death might not have been an accident. It could have been part of their experiments." The implications of their discovery sent shockwaves through the human high command. Admiral Hawthorne received the report just as he was finalizing plans for an all-out assault on the Chalnoth homeworld. Standing before a holographic map of Chalnoth Prime, Hawthorne felt the weight of his decision bearing down on him. Should he proceed with the attack as planned, potentially destroying evidence of the Chalnoth's genetic manipulations? Or should he divert resources to investigate this new threat, possibly giving the enemy time to regroup? As he pondered his options, reports flooded in from across the fleet. Word of the Chalnoth's genetic experiments had spread like wildfire among the troops. Soldiers who had begun to question the morality of the war found themselves filled with a new sense of purpose. Hawthorne's comm unit crackled to life. "Admiral," came the voice of Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Indomitable. "My crew is requesting permission to volunteer for a special operation to secure Chalnoth research facilities. They want answers, sir." Similar messages poured in from across the fleet. The war had evolved from a mission of vengeance into a fight for human autonomy and survival. As Hawthorne weighed his options, he knew that his next decision would shape not just the outcome of the war, but potentially the future of the human species itself. The stars glittered coldly in the viewport, indifferent to the momentous choices being made beneath them. Hawthorne took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. Whatever path he chose, the next phase of the war promised to be unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. Admiral Hawthorne's hand hovered over the command console, his decision crystallizing. With a swift motion, he canceled the assault on Chalnoth Prime. "All ships, stand down from attack formation," he ordered, his voice echoing through the fleet's communication channels. "New orders incoming." The bridge crew exchanged confused glances as Hawthorne brought up a galactic map, highlighting several points across Chalnoth space. "These are suspected Chalnoth research facilities," he explained. "Our new primary objective is to secure and investigate these locations, prepare for precision strikes and ground team deployments." As the fleet reorganized, Hawthorne received an urgent transmission from Earth. President Malcolm Stone's hologram materialized on the bridge, his expression grave. "Admiral, I've just addressed the United Earth Parliament," Stone said. "We've declared the Chalnoth's genetic manipulation of humans a crime against humanity. The Genetic Sovereignty Act has been passed, making it a capital offense for any alien species to tamper with human DNA." Hawthorne nodded solemnly. "Understood, Mr. President. We're already pivoting our strategy to focus on these research facilities." Back on Earth, Justin Young stood before a panel of military and scientific leaders, his eyes burning with drive. "I volunteer for any mission to investigate these Chalnoth labs," he stated. "If there's even a chance my son's death was part of their experiments, I need to know." General Aisha Naha studied him for a moment before nodding. "Mr. Young, your expertise and motivation make you an ideal candidate for Operation Helix. You'll be working alongside Dr. Elena Reeves and a team of our best operatives." Within days, the newly formed Operation Helix team was deployed to the first suspected research facility. As their stealth shuttle approached the nondescript asteroid base, Dr. Reeves briefed the team on what to expect. "Based on the data we've gathered, the Chalnoth are likely using advanced genetic sequencing technology," she explained, her holographic displays showing complex molecular structures. "Our primary objective is to secure any research data and biological samples for analysis." The shuttle docked silently, and the team moved swiftly through the facility's sterile corridors. Justin, his military training from years ago flooding back, took point as they approached the main laboratory. The door hissed open, revealing a scene that stopped them in their tracks. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a different alien species. Holographic displays flickered above each pod, showing rapidly changing genetic sequences. "My God," Dr. Reeves whispered, her eyes wide as she approached a nearby console. Her fingers flew over the alien controls, decrypting and downloading data at a furious pace. Justin moved deeper into the lab, his heart pounding. He stopped before a pod containing a human form, its features obscured by the frosted glass. With trembling hands, he wiped away the condensation, revealing the face of a young woman. "Elena," he called, his voice hoarse, "I think you need to see this." As Dr. Reeves hurried over, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "We've been detected," the team's tech specialist announced. "We need to move now." Justin hesitated, his gaze locked on the stasis pod. Dr. Reeves placed a hand on his shoulder. "We can't free her now," she said gently, "but we'll come back for her and all the others, I promise." With the data secured, the team fought their way back to the shuttle, narrowly escaping as Chalnoth forces converged on the facility. As Operation Helix continued its covert missions, striking facility after facility, the galactic political landscape shifted dramatically. In a secure chamber deep within the Galactic Council's headquarters, representatives from dozens of species argued heatedly. "The evidence is irrefutable," the Andromedan delegate declared, gesturing to the holographic displays showing Chalnoth research data. "The scale of their genetic manipulation violates every principle our council stands for." The Syrian counselor nodded gravely. "We have no choice but to condemn the Chalnoth Empire for these actions. Furthermore, I move that we officially support the human-led coalition in this conflict." As news of the council's decision spread, many neutral races pledged their support to the human cause. Admiral Hawthorne found his fleet growing by the day as alien ships joined his armada. Meanwhile, on the Chalnoth homeworld, War Minister Drakthar paced furiously in his command center. "How could we have been discovered?" he snarled at his subordinates. "Find the source of these leaks and eliminate them." Unbeknownst to Drakthar, a shadow moved through the lower levels of the capital city. Lyra, a Chalnoth scientist who had long opposed the genetic manipulation program, carefully placed explosive charges at key structural points. As she worked, she transmitted vital intelligence to her human contacts. The Central Research Facility for Project Ascension is located beneath the capital's central spire, she whispered into her secure communicator. But be warned, the defenses are unlike anything you've encountered before. With this crucial information in hand, Admiral Hawthorne began formulating a daring plan for a final decisive strike against the heart of the Chalnoth Empire. As preparations for the assault continued, Dr. Elena Reeves worked tirelessly in her lab aboard the HSS Galileo. Surrounded by glowing holographic displays and complex genetic models, she finally made the breakthrough she had been seeking. "It's not just manipulation," she murmured, her eyes wide with realization. "They're trying to create an entirely new species, a hybrid of the most advantageous traits from across the galaxy." As she delved deeper into the Chalnoth research, the true scope of Project Ascension became clear. The Chalnoth weren't just seeking to improve themselves. They were attempting to leap forward in evolution, creating a species that could dominate the galaxy for millennia to come. With this revelation, the stakes of the conflict rose exponentially. It was no longer just a war for justice or even survival. It was a battle for the very future of galactic evolution. As the human fleet, now bolstered by numerous alien allies, prepared for its final push into the heart of Chalnoth space, Justin Young and the Operation Helix team geared up for their most crucial mission yet. They knew that somewhere in the labyrinthine depths of the Chalnoth Central Research Facility lay the answers to questions that had haunted them since the beginning of the conflict. The fate of countless species, manipulated over centuries without their knowledge, hung in the balance. As the combined fleet jumped to light speed, hurtling toward their final confrontation with the architects of Project Ascension, the future of the galaxy trembled on the edge of transformation. The combined fleet emerged from lightspeed, the vast expanse of Chalnoth space materializing before them. Admiral Hawthorne stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their target, the Central Research Facility of Project Ascension. But before he could give the order to begin the assault, alarms blared across the fleet. A massive shape emerged from behind Chalnoth Prime's largest moon, dwarfing even the largest ships in the human armada. "What in the name of—" Hawthorne breathed, his eyes widening as the sensor readings flooded in. The ship that appeared before them was unlike anything they had ever encountered. 3 times the size of any known Chalnoth vessel, its hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, pulsing with veins of energy that seemed almost alive. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, her voice tight with tension, "we're detecting an unknown energy signature from that ship. It's off the charts." Hawthorne's mind raced, quickly assessing the new threat. "All ships, break off from the primary assault," he ordered, his voice carrying across the fleet's comm channels. "Regroup and prepare to engage this new vessel. Designation, Dreadnought Ascendant." As the human fleet scrambled to reposition, the Dreadnought Ascendant opened fire. Beams of sickly green energy lanced out, cutting through space and impacting several ships before they could raise their shields. The vessels didn't explode. Instead, they seemed to wither, their hulls corroding and collapsing in on themselves. "What kind of weapon is that?" Hawthorne demanded, watching in horror as more ships fell to the Dreadnought's assault. Dr. Elena Reeves's voice came through on a secure channel. "Admiral, based on these readings, I believe that ship is powered by a hybrid energy core. It's combining Chalnoth technology with genetic material from multiple species." The implication sent a chill down Hawthorne's spine. "We need to take that thing down," he growled. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Dreadnought Ascendant. I want precision strikes on any weak points you can find. As the space around them erupted into the largest battle of the war, with hundreds of ships exchanging fire across a vast swath of space, Hawthorne received another transmission. "Admiral," Justin Young's voice came through tight with willpower. "Operation Helix is requesting permission to board the Dreadnought Ascendant. We need to disable that core and gather intel on its capabilities." Hawthorne hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Permission granted, but be careful in there, Young. We have no idea what you're walking into." Inside the stealth shuttle approaching the massive Chalnoth vessel, Justin checked his gear one last time. Dr. Reeves's voice came through his earpiece. "Justin, our scans are having trouble penetrating the Dreadnought's hull, but what we can see, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Be prepared for anything." The shuttle slipped through a gap in the Dreadnought's defenses, latching onto an airlock near the ship's stern. As Justin and his team breached the hull, they were immediately struck by the ship's interior. The corridors pulsed with an eerie organic light. Veins of energy ran through the walls, floor, and ceiling, creating a disorienting, almost nightmarish environment. The air was thick and humid, carrying a strange metallic scent. "My God," one of Justin's teammates whispered, "it's like the ship is alive." As they moved deeper into the vessel, they encountered horrifying evidence of the Chalnoth's experiments. Pods lined the walls, filled with writhing masses of tissue, failed attempts at creating hybrid life forms. In other areas, they saw living tissue integrated directly into the ship's systems, pulsing and quivering as it processed data and energy. "We need to find the core," Justin said, forcing down his revulsion. "Stay alert. We don't know what kind of defenses we'll encounter." Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Reeves worked furiously in her lab, analyzing the data streaming in from the battle and Justin's team. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing complex genetic sequences and energy patterns. "This can't be," she muttered, her eyes widening as she made a breakthrough. "They're not just manipulating genes. They're rewriting the fundamental rules of biology itself." Her fingers flew over the controls as she developed a new algorithm, one that could potentially reverse the effects of the Chalnoth experiments. "If this works," she breathed, "we might be able to free all the species they've manipulated." As Elena's discovery provided a glimmer of hope, the battle in space raged on. Admiral Hawthorne employed a daring strategy, using smaller, more agile ships to perform precision strikes on the Dreadnought Ascendant's weak points. Slowly but surely, they began to wear down its formidable defenses. Inside the Dreadnought, Justin's team finally reached the central core chamber. What they found there stopped them in their tracks. The core was a massive, pulsating organ, a hybrid of machine and living tissue. Surrounding it were dozens of genetically enhanced Chalnoth soldiers, their bodies twisted and augmented far beyond their natural forms. "Take them down!" Justin shouted as the enhanced Chalnoth charged. The battle that ensued was unlike anything they had faced before. The Chalnoth soldiers moved with inhuman speed and strength, shrugging off wounds that would have felled normal opponents. Justin and his team relied on their advanced weaponry and tactical training, working in perfect coordination to slowly whittle down the enemy's numbers. As the fight raged on, Justin caught glimpses of the core's inner workings. He saw chambers filled with DNA samples from countless species, being continuously recombined and tested. The true scope of Project Ascension became clear. The Chalnoth weren't just trying to improve themselves, they were attempting to create an entirely new dominant species. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The core's pulsations increased in speed and intensity, and Justin realized with horror what was happening. "They're overloading the core," he shouted into his comm. "Admiral, they're going to blow the ship." On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Hawthorne received Justin's warning with growing dread. Long-range sensors confirmed it. Energy readings from the Dreadnought Ascendant were spiking to unprecedented levels. "If that core detonates," his science officer reported, "it could destabilize space-time itself. Entire systems could be wiped out." Hawthorne's mind raced, weighing his options. The battle was nearly won, the Dreadnought on the verge of defeat. But with Justin and his team still aboard and the potential for catastrophic damage to the entire sector, he faced the most difficult decision of his career. As klaxons blared and energy levels continued to rise, Hawthorne's hand hovered over the command console. The fate of the war, countless lives, and potentially the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Whatever choice he made in the next few moments would echo through history, shaping the future of humanity and its place in the cosmos. Admiral Hawthorne's hand slammed down on the console, activating the fleet-wide emergency channel. All ships, this is Admiral Hawthorne. Execute Operation Firewall immediately. The bridge crew sprang into action, their fingers flying across control panels as they implemented the desperate plan. The massive HSS Vengeance, pride of the human fleet, broke formation and surged towards the pulsating dreadnought ascendant. Divert all power to forward shields, Hawthorne barked. We need to create a containment field around that ship before it blows. Inside the dreadnought, Justin Young and his team fought their way through twisting organic corridors. The ship's internal structure seemed to be collapsing around them, veins of energy rupturing and spewing corrosive fluid. This way, Justin shouted, gesturing towards a junction. Sensors show an escape pod bay 2 levels down. As they rounded a corner, a squad of genetically enhanced Chalnoth soldiers charged at them. Their bodies were grotesquely altered, muscles bulging and skin covered in chitinous plates. Justin's team opened fire, their advanced weapons tearing through the enhanced armor. One Chalnoth, larger than the others, barreled through the gunfire and slammed into Justin, sending them both crashing into a pulsating wall. Justin felt the air driven from his lungs as he struggled against the creature's inhuman strength. "Go!" he managed to gasp to his team. "Get to the escape pods." As Justin fought for his life, his second-in-command, Sergeant Chen, made a split-second decision. He pulled a plasma grenade from his belt, armed it, and hurled it at the grappling pair. "Sorry, boss," Chen muttered as he dragged the rest of the team away. Justin saw the grenade arcing towards him and with a surge of adrenaline managed to twist the Chalnoth around. The explosion ripped through the corridor, the enhanced soldier taking the brunt of the blast. Justin was thrown clear, his armor scorched but intact. Staggering to his feet, he rejoined his team as they descended towards the escape pod bay. The ship's internal gravity fluctuated wildly, at times leaving them floating weightless, at others crushing them to the deck. Finally, they reached the bay. Rows of organic-looking pods lined the walls, pulsing with the same sickly energy that pervaded the entire ship. "Everyone in," Justin ordered, prying open the nearest pod. "We've got one shot at this." As his team scrambled into the pods, Justin activated his comm link. "Admiral, we're launching escape pods from the aft section. Any chance of a pickup?" Hawthorne's voice crackled through, tight with tension. "We see you, Young. The Vengeance is in position. Launching tractor beams now." Justin sealed himself into the last pod, his heart pounding as he felt the launch mechanisms engage. With a violent lurch, the pod was ejected into space. Through the pod's viewport, Justin saw the massive bulk of the dreadnought ascendant, now wreathed in crackling energy. The HSS Vengeance loomed nearby, its shields glowing as it struggled to contain the impending explosion. Suddenly, Justin felt his pod jerk as the Vengeance's tractor beam locked on. He watched in awe as the massive human ship reeled in the escape pods like a fisherman hauling in a catch. Just as the last pod was secured, the dreadnought ascendant's core finally gave way. The explosion was like nothing Justin had ever seen, a sphere of blinding energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of space around it. The Vengeance's shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the brunt of the blast. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems overloaded and failed. "All ships, emergency jump." Hawthorne's voice boomed through the comms. "Execute synchronized retreat pattern Delta." In a coordinated maneuver that spoke to countless hours of drills and preparation, the entire human fleet and their alien allies engaged their FTL drives simultaneously. Stars streaked into lines as they leapt away from the expanding shockwave of the dreadnought's destruction. When they dropped back into normal space minutes later, the fleet was scattered but intact. Damage reports began flooding in. Scorched hulls, overloaded systems, injured crew, but no ships had been lost. As the immediate danger passed, the magnitude of their victory began to sink in. The Chalnoth Empire's greatest weapon was destroyed, and with it, the backbone of their military might. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Hawthorne allowed himself a moment of relief before turning to his communications officer. "Get me a secure channel to Earth. President Stone needs to know what's happened here." Across the sector, news of the Chalnoth defeat spread rapidly. On the Chalnoth homeworld, Lyra and her rebel faction seized their opportunity. With the military in disarray and the War Minister's power base shattered, they moved swiftly to take control. Lyra stood before the hastily assembled provisional government, her voice firm as she addressed the gathering. "For too long, our people have been led down a path of aggression and unethical experimentation. Today, we choose a different way. I am hereby declaring an immediate ceasefire with human forces and their allies." The declaration sent shockwaves through Chalnoth society. Some celebrated the end of a costly war, while others, indoctrinated by years of propaganda, reacted with disbelief and anger. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Reeves worked tirelessly in her lab, surrounded by holographic displays of complex genetic sequences. A group of volunteers, confirmed victims of Chalnoth experimentation, waited nervously as she prepared to administer her newly developed treatment. "All right," Elena said, taking a deep breath. "We're ready to begin the first trial of the genetic restoration process. Remember, we'll be monitoring you closely throughout the procedure." As the volunteers were treated one by one, Elena watched the real-time genetic analysis with held breath. Slowly, impossibly, the altered sequences began to revert to their original human configuration. "It's working," she whispered, a smile spreading across her face. "We can undo what the Chalnoth have done." In the halls of the Galactic Council, debates raged. The human victory had upended the delicate balance of power that had existed for centuries. Many counselors argued passionately for a new order, one that would give humanity a central role in galactic affairs. A delegation was dispatched to Earth, carrying with it an unprecedented offer: a permanent seat on the Galactic Council and a leading position in a new unified galactic defense force. President Malcolm Stone received the news with a mixture of pride and caution. He gathered his advisors, military leaders, scientists, and diplomats to craft Earth's response. "We've earned this," Stone said, his gaze sweeping the room. "But we need assurances. I want full disclosure from the Council about any prior knowledge of Chalnoth activities, and we need a thorough investigation to ensure no other Council races were complicit." As the diplomats worked to hammer out the details of humanity's new role in the galaxy, the after-effects of the war continued to ripple outward. Admiral Hawthorne, hailed as the architect of the final victory, found himself thrust into a new role as the first human commander of the fledgling Galactic Defense Force. Standing aboard the bridge of a newly commissioned flagship, Hawthorne addressed his multi-species crew. "Our first mission is clear," he said, his voice carrying the weight of responsibility. "We will oversee the dismantling of Chalnoth military installations and secure their research facilities. The secrets they've hidden for too long will finally come to light." Meanwhile, Justin Young, still bearing the physical and emotional scars of his final mission, received an unexpected offer. Earth's government wanted him to serve as chief diplomat to the new Chalnoth regime. Justin's initial reaction was revulsion. After all he had seen and experienced at Chalnoth hands, how could he possibly serve as a bridge between their peoples? But as he considered the alternative, a return to hostilities and distrust, he realized the importance of the role. "I'll do it," he said finally, his voice heavy with dedication, "for the sake of lasting peace." As the immediate crisis passed, the full implications of the Chalnoth's vast genetic experimentation program began to emerge. Dr. Reeves, now heading a multi-species scientific task force, faced the daunting task of understanding and addressing the changes wrought across countless populations. "The scope is staggering," she admitted during a briefing with President Stone. "We're not just talking about a few isolated incidents. The Chalnoth have been manipulating the genetic destiny of entire species for generations. Unraveling it all will take years, maybe decades." Stone nodded gravely. "You'll have whatever resources you need, Doctor. This is too important to leave half done." As humanity stepped onto the galactic stage in earnest, new challenges and opportunities presented themselves. The species once dismissed as upstarts now found itself at the center of a rapidly changing interstellar political landscape. Yet even as celebrations continued on Earth and its colonies, military leaders maintained a state of vigilance. The threat of rogue Chalnoth factions or opportunistic attacks by other species in the post-war chaos remained very real. In this new era of human ascendancy, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how this young species would wield its newfound power and influence. The war was over, but the work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. Admiral Hawthorne stood at the helm of the GDF flagship, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the Epsilon Eridani system. The task force had spent weeks combing through the outer reaches, searching for any trace of Chalnoth activity. "Sir, we're picking up unusual energy readings from the third moon of the gas giant," reported Lieutenant Commander Chen, his fingers dancing across the sensor console. Hawthorne leaned in, studying the readouts. "Magnify that sector." The hologram zoomed in, revealing a seemingly barren lunar surface, but as the sensors probed deeper, they detected faint power signatures beneath the regolith. "It's well shielded," Hawthorne mused. "Too well shielded for a natural formation. All ships move into position. We're going in." As the task force descended through the thin atmosphere, the true nature of the outpost revealed itself. Camouflaged hangars opened like gaping maws, disgorging swarms of automated defense drones. "Evasive maneuvers," Hawthorne barked. "Target those launchers." The space above the moon erupted in a dazzling light show as human and allied ships engaged the Chalnoth defenses. Precision strikes from the task force's vanguard quickly neutralized the outer perimeter, allowing for a landing party to be deployed. On the surface, Major Sarah Donovan led her team through winding corridors of the hidden facility. The architecture was unmistakably Chalnoth, all twisting organic forms and pulsing bioluminescence. "Stay alert," Donovan warned. "We don't know if there are any living Chalnoths still here." They encountered only automated systems and the occasional security bot easily dispatched. But as they penetrated deeper into the complex, they found something far more valuable than any remaining Chalnoth. "Major, you need to see this," called one of her team, gesturing to a vast chamber filled with servers and holographic interfaces. Donovan's eyes widened as she took in the scope of the database before her. "Get a secure uplink to Dr. Reeves immediately. She needs to see this." Thousands of light years away, in her lab on Earth, Dr. Elena Reeves received the transmission. Her team worked feverishly to process the incoming data, their faces a mixture of awe and horror as the true extent of the Chalnoth's genetic meddling became clear. "This goes beyond anything we imagined," Elena murmured, her eyes darting from one display to another. They weren't just experimenting on a few species, they were shaping the entire galaxy's evolutionary path. Her assistant, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, looked up from her own terminal. "Elena, I'm seeing markers here that match species we've never encountered before. The Chalnoth knew about civilizations we haven't even discovered yet." Elena's mind raced with the implications. This discovery would reshape their understanding of galactic history and biology, but it also presented an enormous ethical challenge. How could they address the far-reaching consequences of such extensive genetic manipulation? As the Epsilon Eridani discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community, Justin Young faced challenges of a different sort on the Chalnoth homeworld. He'd spent months building relationships with the new government, but undercurrents of resentment still ran deep in Chalnoth society. Justin was leaving a meeting with Lyra when it happened. A grav car came screaming around a corner, energy weapons blazing. Justin's security detail reacted instantly, tackling him to the ground as return fire erupted. The attack was over in seconds, leaving smoking wreckage and the acrid scent of ozone in the air. As Justin was hustled to safety, he caught a glimpse of the attackers, Chalnoth, their faces contorted with hate. In the aftermath, Justin stood in Lyra's office, his usual diplomatic calm shaken. "This can't continue," he said, pacing restlessly. "If we can't guarantee basic security, the entire peace process is at risk." Lyra's face was a mask of shame and drive. "I assure you, we will find those responsible. This attack does not represent the will of my people." Justin nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead to the potential fallout. He'd need to report this to Earth, and he knew how some factions would react. The fragile peace they'd worked so hard to build suddenly felt very tenuous indeed. Back on Earth, the influx of alien technology was rapidly transforming human society. Cities were being reshaped by zero-point energy generators and gravity-defying architecture. Hospitals boasted medical technologies that seemed like magic only years before. But not everyone welcomed these changes. In a crowded town hall meeting, voices were raised in anger and fear. "How do we know these alien machines are safe?" demanded one speaker. "We're turning our planet into something unrecognizable." President Malcolm Stone listened attentively, understanding the fears behind the outrage. When the crowd quieted, he stepped up to the podium. "Change is never easy," he began, his voice steady and reassuring. "But we cannot ignore the opportunities before us. That's why I'm announcing the formation of the Global Technology Integration Committee." He outlined the committee's mission: to guide the implementation of alien technologies in a way that respected human values and safety concerns. It was a start, but Stone knew that balancing progress and tradition would be an ongoing challenge. In orbit above Earth, the first of a new generation of starships prepared for its maiden voyage. The HSS Horizon gleamed in the sunlight, its sleek lines a fusion of human ingenuity and alien innovation. Admiral Hawthorne stood on the bridge, surveying his crew, a mix of humans and allied species, all working together seamlessly. It was a far cry from the purely human fleet he'd commanded during the war. "Helm, take us out," he ordered. As the Horizon glided away from the shipyards, Hawthorne felt a mix of pride and anticipation. This ship represented humanity's new place in the galaxy, no longer isolated, but an integral part of a larger cosmic community. The Horizon's first mission would take them to the edge of known space, where a human exploration vessel had made an intriguing discovery. The Zephyrians, an advanced species from the galactic core, had finally responded to attempts at communication. As the ship dropped out of FTL near the designated meeting point, Hawthorne prepared himself for first contact. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being of startling beauty, the Zephyrian ambassador. "Greetings, Admiral Hawthorne," the alien said, its voice a melodious hum. "We have been observing your species with great interest and some concern." Hawthorne straightened, sensing the delicate nature of this interaction. "We come in peace, Ambassador. Humanity seeks only to learn and to contribute positively to the galactic community." The Zephyrian's expression was unreadable. "Your rapid rise to power and your recent conflict give us pause. We must be assured of your intentions." As Hawthorne carefully navigated the diplomatic exchange, another crisis was unfolding in the far reaches of the solar system. A Chalnoth base, hidden in the Oort cloud, had become the staging ground for a terrifying new threat. Dr. Kralox, a Chalnoth geneticist driven mad by his species' defeat, had gathered a group of loyalists. In the icy laboratories of their asteroid hideout, they put the finishing touches on a weapon that could rewrite the genetic code of entire populations. "Soon," Kralox hissed, his eyes gleaming with fanatical light, "the humans will understand true evolution." But the Galactic Defense Force was already closing in. Admiral Hawthorne, alerted to the threat, had mobilized a joint task force. Ships from a dozen species converged on the Oort cloud, weapons primed. As the assault on the asteroid base began, Dr. Elena Reeves worked frantically in her lab on Earth. The virus Kralox had created was like nothing she'd ever seen, a chimera of genetic material from multiple species, including humans. It's adapting faster than we can analyze it, she muttered, running another simulation. Her team worked around the clock, knowing that millions of lives hung in the balance. In space, the battle raged. The asteroid's defenses were formidable, a testament to Chalnoth military engineering, but the combined might of the Galactic Defense Force was slowly but surely overwhelming them. Admiral Hawthorne, coordinating the assault from the horizon, received a priority transmission from Earth. It was Dr. Reeves, her face drawn with exhaustion, but her eyes bright with triumph. "We've done it, Admiral," she said. "We have a countermeasure, but it needs to be deployed directly into the asteroid's life support systems." Hawthorne nodded grimly. "Understood, Doctor. We'll get your team inside." As the task force prepared for a final push, the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. The battle against Krelox and his followers would determine not just the security of humanity, but the genetic future of the galaxy itself. Admiral Hawthorne's calm crackled to life, Dr. Elena Reeves's face appearing on the holographic display. Her eyes were bright with a mixture of excitement and urgency. "Admiral, we've developed a potential countermeasure," she said, her words coming in rapid succession. "But there's a catch. We need a sample of Dr. Krelox's latest strain to finalize it." Hawthorne's brow furrowed as he processed the information. He knew the risks of delaying the assault, but the potential payoff was too great to ignore. "Understood, Doctor. We'll get you that sample," he replied, his mind already formulating a plan. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Justin Young, now." Minutes later, Justin stood before the Admiral, his face a mask of perseverance. Hawthorne laid out the situation in terse, efficient sentences. "You'll lead a stealth team," the Admiral concluded. "Get in, secure the sample, and get out. The main assault begins as soon as you're clear." Justin nodded, his hand unconsciously touching the holster at his hip. "We'll get it done, sir." The infiltration team's ship slipped through space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the asteroid base's sensors. Justin felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as they approached their target, his mind focused on the mission ahead. Inside the asteroid, the team moved swiftly and silently through winding corridors. The air was thick with an acrid chemical smell that made Justin's nose wrinkle. They encountered their first resistance at a security checkpoint, a pair of Chalnoth guards, their bodies bulging with unnatural musculature. The firefight was brief but intense. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks on the organic-looking walls. Justin's team worked with practiced precision, taking down the guards before they could sound the alarm. As they pushed deeper into the base, the resistance grew fiercer. Genetically enhanced Chalnoth soldiers seemed to appear from every shadow, their eyes gleaming with fanatical zeal. Justin's team fought their way through, the air filling with the scent of ozone and the sound of energy weapons. In a dimly lit laboratory, Justin found what they were looking for, a sealed container humming with hardly restrained energy. As he reached for it, a bolt of energy seared past his head. He spun, returning fire, and saw a Chalnoth scientist crumple to the floor. "Got it!" Justin called out, securing the container. But as they turned to leave, a squad of Chalnoth burst into the room. In the ensuing chaos, Justin felt a white-hot pain lance through his side. He stumbled but kept moving, the precious sample clutched to his chest. The team fought their way back to their ship, Justin gritting his teeth against the pain of his wound. As they blasted away from the asteroid, he saw the first flashes of weapons fire as the main assault began. On the HSS horizon, Admiral Hawthorne watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. Human and alien warships moved in perfect coordination, their weapons blazing against the asteroid's formidable defenses. "Ground troops are away," his tactical officer reported. "Major Rodriguez's team is leading the charge." Hawthorne nodded, his eyes never leaving the display. "Tell them to push hard. We need to keep Krelox off balance." On the asteroid's surface, Major Elena Rodriguez led her team through a hail of energy bolts. The Chalnoth defenders fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, but Rodriguez's troops were well trained and determined. Push forward, she shouted, her voice carrying over the din of battle. We need to reach the central complex. Back on Earth, Dr. Reeves worked feverishly in her lab, her team a flurry of activity around her. The sample from the asteroid had arrived, and every second counted. As she analyzed the virus, her eyes widened in shock. This can't be, she muttered, running the test again, but the results were clear. The virus contained genetic markers from Ethan Young, Justin's deceased son. The revelation sent a chill down her spine. It confirmed their worst fears about the extent of the Chalnoth's experimentation and the true purpose behind Ethan's tragic death. In orbit around the asteroid, Admiral Hawthorne received an urgent alert. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy buildup," his sensor officer reported. "They're preparing to launch the virus." Hawthorne's mind raced, considering options. There was only one choice. "Order the Vengeance to move into position," he commanded. "They're to use their shields as a barrier between the asteroid and the colony." The massive warship moved into place, its advanced shields glowing as they prepared to intercept the deadly payload. Inside the asteroid, Major Rodriguez and her team had fought their way to the heart of the complex. They burst into a cavernous chamber dominated by pulsing organic technology. At its center stood Dr. Kralox, his hands hovering over a console. "It's over, Kralox," Rodriguez called out, her weapon trained on the Chalnoth scientist. Kralox turned, his eyes blazing with madness. "You understand nothing," he snarled. "This is the next step in evolution." He lunged for the console, but Rodriguez was faster. She tackled him, and they went down in a tangle of limbs. Despite Kralox's enhanced strength, Rodriguez's combat training gave her the edge. They grappled fiercely, rolling across the floor as Rodriguez's team secured the room. With a final decisive move, Rodriguez pinned Kralox to the ground, her knee pressing into his back. "Secure him," she ordered, breathing heavily. As Kralox was led away in restraints, Dr. Reeves arrived with her team, carrying cases of equipment. She moved swiftly, administering the countermeasure to the captured Chalnoth scientists and the human soldiers who had been exposed during the fight. "It's working," she announced, relief evident in her voice as she checked the readings on her medical scanner. "The genetic modifications are reversing." The immediate threat neutralized, the full scope of what they had uncovered began to sink in. The galaxy had been brought to the brink of catastrophe, and humanity had played a crucial role in averting it. As the last pockets of resistance on the asteroid were mopped up, Admiral Hawthorne received a transmission from Earth. It was President Malcolm Stone, his face grave but determined. "Admiral, well done," Stone said, "but our work is far from finished. The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session. It's time for humanity to take its place as a true leader in galactic affairs." Hawthorne nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. As he prepared to address his crew, he knew that the events of the past few days had changed the course of human history forever. The stars, once so distant, now seemed within reach, and humanity's role in shaping the future of the galaxy was only beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.